40 times 80 squared. No.
40 times 80 times 2 plus.
Yeah, 40 times 80 times 2 plus
50.
40. No, that's 40 times 50.
I just did that.
Successful and effective differentiation requires careful attention to management of the classroom and of student work. Teachers in differentiated classrooms focus on maintaining some order in the environment while allowing for students to work independently and take more responsibility for their learning. What this means is that students in differentiated classrooms really do need to see themselves as agents of control. They need to know that there are times when they will be making choices for themselves about their learning. It gives them a sense of power and often results in greater attention to their work. After all, if they've had some choice in their work, they're much more likely to take greater ownership of it. This aspect of differentiated instruction, the idea that teachers will be giving some decision-making power over to their students, can strike fear in the hearts of many teachers. But solid classroom management routines that have been rehearsed with the students can provide the structure needed to make flexible grouping and student choice effective and engaging for all. Learning contracts are valuable management tools in a differentiated classroom. Basically, a learning contract is an agreement, often written very much like any other type of contract, between a teacher and students about what, how, and when students will complete specific tasks. Sometimes contracts are connected to a specific unit of study and address work related to independent studies that take place while the regular instruction is taking place. So, for instance, students studying poetry might contract with their teacher to do work that relates to that topic and is of particular interest to them. This work will be completed during the course of the unit on poetry and will have a set due date, but the students will decide, with their teacher's input of course, when they will do specific tasks to complete their contract work. The learning contract in this case supports the study of poetry and allows students to work with poetry in ways that appeal to them. Other learning contracts provide management of student movement in the classroom and are designed to ensure that students are participating in a variety of activities over a specified time period. For instance, teachers often create contracts that correspond to their learning centers to ensure that students are visiting a variety of learning centers over the course of a week, rather than repeating the same center activities over and over again. Think-tac-toe is a particular type of learning contract that relates to a specific unit and allows students a great deal of choice while focusing on important objectives, information, and skills. Sometimes called tic-tac-toes or menu boards, when well thought out and implemented, think-tac-toes are powerful instructional tools that students enjoy, and they can be used at every grade level and in every subject area. A think-tac-toe is presented to students in the form of a grid. This grid can be a 3x3, 2x2, or any other size that allows for student choice and offers a range of options. The best way to ensure that students will complete work that is important while having choice about that work is to have each row represent a specific objective, topic, or skill. If we're using a 3x3 grid, then students will choose one task from the options presented on each row for a total of 3 tasks. It's important to note that students do not need to connect their tasks going down, across, or diagonally. So, for instance, a think-tac-toe for a novel study might address characterization on the first row, setting on the second row, and theme on the third row. In this case, each student must complete a task that addresses characterization in the novel, one that addresses the setting of the novel, and one that addresses the novel's theme. Nobody can get away with addressing only 1 or 2 literary elements in the novel. All students must deal with all 3 of the literary elements deemed important at this time by the teacher. And this is really the great thing about think-tac-toes. While the students have a great deal of choice, the teacher also maintains a great deal of control over those choices. The one thing a teacher must be very careful about in designing think-tac-toes is ensuring that the readiness level of the options presented remains very similar across the options. For instance, if on each row one option looks fairly simple, one appears to be very difficult, and one falls somewhere in between, students are likely to choose the option that looks easiest. So a think-tac-toe is not a good strategy for differentiating based on student readiness. It is, however, a great way to differentiate based on student learning profile. And one of the most effective and easy tools to apply to a think-tac-toe is Gardner's Multiple Intelligences. Let's look at an example of a think-tac-toe designed for use with a study of U.S. government. The top row focuses on the 3 branches of government. The middle row focuses on our government system of checks and balances, and the bottom row focuses on amendments to the Constitution. Each row includes 3 options for addressing that row's focus, and each student will select one option from each row. Thus, all students will complete 3 tasks, one related to the branches of our government, one related to our system of checks and balances, and one related to amendments to the Constitution. In this particular example, each option on each row is based on a different type of intelligence, as outlined by Gardner's model. For example, to address branches of government on the first row, one task might be to create a new symbol for each of the branches of government. This option would appeal to visual spatial learners and would give these learners a chance to demonstrate their understanding of the roles and responsibilities of each branch of government. Verbal linguistic learners would probably choose another way to address the branches of government. The task provided on the first row of the think-tac-toe for these learners might be to write a conversation between members of different branches of government in which each person discusses his or her roles and responsibilities in government. As with the task for visual learners, successful completion of this task would require students to have ample understanding of the roles and responsibilities of each branch of government. Jumping down to the second row, addressing our government system of checks and balances, naturalistic learners might choose to show what they know about checks and balances by explaining how a system of checks and balances works in nature. These students would find a way to show how this system in nature compares to this system in our government. Other tasks on the think-tac-toe would address different intelligences while also addressing different elements of the study of U.S. government. The goal in the design of a think-tac-toe is to require students to draw on their knowledge, understandings, and skills to create a product that is in line with their learning profiles or interests. When designed effectively, think-tac-toes make excellent assessments of student learning over a period of time. Many teachers use them toward the end of units when students have already learned much of what they need to know and be able to do to complete the options.
Let's try for
Many. Many teachers?
Many teachers.
Okay. Many teachers use them toward the end of units when students have already learned much of what they need to know and be able to do to complete the options presented on the think-tac-toe. Used in combination with more formal assessments, think-tac-toes provide ample evidence about student learning. Think-tac-toes can take some time to develop, but they also take some time for students to complete. Often, students work on them over the course of a week or 2. It helps to require students to work on their think-tac-toe options during class rather than taking them home. This gives the teacher a chance to assess both the process involved in completion of the tasks as well as the final products. So often, the steps students go through during the process of task completion and the problems they encounter along the way give us much more information about their learning than the actual final product that they create. In terms of assessments of these types of tasks, it's a good idea to use a rubric or checklist that highlights the qualities of an outstanding product, as well as the process involved in the completion of the tasks. And students can certainly be involved in the process of evaluating both their own and others' work. Think-tac-toes are definitely not a low-prep form of differentiation for teachers, but students love them because they get choice about how to show what they know and can do. You'll look at more complete examples of think-tac-toes during your live web session, but before then, go ahead and make a list of the units that you teach where think-tac-toes might be needed. Then select one of these units and start to brainstorm ideas for the think-tac-toe, keeping in mind that you don't want to create tasks that address different readiness levels. Rather, this is a good place to address learning profile differences among your students. Have fun with designing your own think-tac-toe. This strategy is a great one for tapping into your own creativity.